Did you know that the fashion industry is one of the largest polluters in the world? Shocking, right? It generates about 10% of global carbon emissions, more than all international flights and maritime shipping combined. Every year, about 92 million tons of textile waste ends up in landfills, where it can take decades to decompose. And here's a real kicker: an estimated 85% of all clothing produced is thrown away. That means most of what we buy ends up as trash. So, what's the deal with sustainable fashion? Many of us think that buying eco-friendly clothes will save the planet. But the truth is a bit more complicated. While sustainable fashion is a step in the right direction, it's not a magic solution. We need to dig deeper to understand the real impact of our choices. In this video, we'll explore the murky waters of sustainable fashion. We'll uncover the truth about greenwashing, the hidden costs of our clothing, and why simply recycling isn't enough. You'll learn how to become a conscious consumer and why the fight for sustainability goes beyond our wardrobes. Get ready to challenge what you know about fashion and discover how we can make a real difference together. Chapter 1: The Greenwashing Mirage. Unmasking sustainable fashion. We've all seen it, brands flaunting eco-friendly collections, promising to save the planet one t-shirt at a time. But here's the catch: most of it is just clever marketing. This is where greenwashing comes in. It's when companies spend more time and money claiming to be green than actually minimizing their environmental impact. According to a 2021 Changing Markets Foundation report, 60% of claims by fast fashion brands were misleading. They'll slap a sustainable label on a product with recycled polyester, but won't mention that polyester is still made from plastic, which contributes to microplastic pollution. A classic example is H&M's Conscious collection. While they claim it's eco-friendly, studies have shown that the collection still relies heavily on unsustainable practices. This is why it's important to question these claims. Don't be fooled by buzzwords like organic or ethical. Look deeper. Is the entire supply chain transparent? How are workers treated? The key takeaway here is that sustainable fashion is often more about optics than real environmental action. Fashion brands have become pros at making you feel good about your purchases, even if those purchases are still harming the planet. As consumers, we need to be more informed. If a brand is truly sustainable, they should have proof, such as certifications like GOTS, Global Organic Textile Standard, or B Corp status, which measures their overall social and environmental performance. Chapter 2: The Real Carbon Cost. Beyond the organic cotton label, let's talk about carbon emissions. We often think buying a shirt made from organic cotton is a green choice. But here's the problem: even organic cotton has a massive carbon footprint. A 2019 study by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation revealed that the fashion industry is responsible for 10% of global carbon emissions. That's more than all international flights and maritime shipping combined. Even a t-shirt labeled sustainable can travel thousands of miles before it lands in your closet. Think about the energy required for cultivation, processing, dyeing, and transportation. Take organic cotton, for example. Yes, it's better than conventional cotton because it doesn't use harmful pesticides. But it's still water intensive. It takes about 2,700 liters of water to produce one cotton t-shirt, according to the World Wildlife Fund. That's enough water for one person to drink for 2.5 years. So, while organic cotton is a step in the right direction, it's not a magic bullet for sustainability. What's the solution? We need to think beyond the fabric and focus on reducing overall consumption. Buying less but higher quality items that last longer can significantly reduce carbon emissions. Patagonia, for instance, encourages customers to repair their clothes rather than constantly buying new ones. The company estimates that if we kept our clothes for just 9 more months, we could reduce carbon, water, and waste footprints by around 20–30%. Chapter 3: Fashion's Dirty Secret. The waste crisis we can't ignore. Here's a stat that might shock you. The average American throws away about 81 pounds of clothes every year, according to the Environmental Protection Agency. Where do these clothes go? Most end up in landfills, where they release harmful greenhouse gases as they decompose. Even so-called biodegradable fabrics, like cotton or wool, can take decades to break down under the right conditions. And while some brands promote recycling, less than 1% of all clothing is recycled into new garments, according to Ellen MacArthur Foundation. So, what happens to all those clothes we donate? Unfortunately, many of them aren't resold. Instead, they're shipped off to developing countries where they flood local markets, harming local economies. And eventually, a lot of that clothing ends up in landfills anyway. Ghana's Kantamanto market, for example, receives 15 million pieces of second-hand clothing each week, with 40% deemed unwearable and sent to waste dumps. One of the biggest issues is the take-make-waste model of fashion. Fast fashion brands churn out new clothes at an unsustainable rate, encouraging a culture of disposability. People buy cheap items, wear them a few times, and toss them. This cycle needs to stop. Instead of buying into fast fashion, consider alternatives like clothing rentals, second-hand shopping, or participating in clothing swaps. Companies like Rent the Runway and ThredUp offer ways to reduce fashion waste by keeping clothes in circulation longer. The future of fashion is circular. This means designing clothes that can be reused, repaired, and eventually recycled back into new products. Brands like Eileen Fisher are already embracing this concept by taking back old clothes and turning them into new garments. It's a small step, but it points in the right direction, creating a system where fashion doesn't just end up as waste. If you're finding this information eye-opening, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more insights into sustainable living. Chapter 4: Circularity Revolution. Why reusing beats recycling. When we think about sustainability, recycling often comes to mind. But in fashion, recycling isn't the silver bullet we think it is. Here's the truth: less than 1% of clothing is truly recycled into new garments. The problem is that most fabrics aren't made for recycling. Blended fabrics like cotton polyester are nearly impossible to break down and reuse in the same way. According to a report from Fashion for Good, even when recycling is possible, the process still requires a lot of energy and water. That's where the idea of a circular economy comes in. Instead of focusing on recycling, the goal is to keep clothes in use for as long as possible. This means reusing, repairing, and repurposing clothes rather than just throwing them out. Circular fashion is all about designing clothes to last, so they can be worn, repaired, and passed on, not just discarded after a season. One strategy that's gaining traction is fashion libraries, where people can borrow clothes instead of buying them. Think of it like a library for clothing. When you're done, you return it. This extends the life of each item and reduces the demand for new clothes. Companies like Lena in the Netherlands are pioneering this model, allowing customers to rent stylish, high-quality pieces rather than owning items they'll only wear a few times. Another great example is upcycling. This involves taking old garments and turning them into something new and wearable. It's a creative and eco-friendly way to give clothes a second life. Brands like the R Collective are turning textile waste into luxury pieces, proving that waste can be turned into something beautiful. The circular fashion movement is also about repairing. Brands like Patagonia and Levi's offer repair services for their clothes, encouraging customers to fix their items rather than replace them. In fact, Levi's Buy Better, Wear Longer campaign focuses on getting people to hold onto their jeans longer, reducing waste. These companies recognize that keeping clothes in use is far more sustainable than recycling or replacing them with new ones. Chapter 5: Conscious Consumption. The mindset shift that matters more. Sustainability starts with our mindset. While it's great to buy eco-friendly products, the most impactful thing we can do is simply consume less. According to The True Cost, a documentary on the impact of fast fashion, the average person today buys 60% more clothes than they did 20 years ago, yet keeps them for half as long. This cycle of constant buying isn't just hard on our wallets, it's devastating for the planet. Conscious consumption means being mindful of what we buy and why. Instead of impulse shopping, ask yourself, do I really need this? Will I wear it often? Is it made to last? This small shift in thinking can lead to huge reductions in waste. A study by WRAP found that if we all extended the life of our clothes by just 9 months, it would reduce carbon and water footprints by 20–30%. That's a massive impact from just wearing our clothes a bit longer. Another strategy is to embrace slow fashion. This movement emphasizes quality over quantity, encouraging people to buy fewer, better-made items that can last for years. Investing in timeless pieces instead of chasing trends helps reduce the demand for fast fashion, which is notorious for its wasteful practices. Brands like Everlane and Eileen Fisher focus on transparency and ethical production, showing that it's possible to make durable clothes in a responsible way. Being a conscious consumer also means supporting brands that share your values. Look for companies that are transparent about their supply chains, use sustainable materials, and treat their workers fairly. Certifications like Fair Trade or B Corp status can help you identify brands that are genuinely committed to ethical and sustainable practices. Finally, consider the idea of a capsule wardrobe. This is a minimalist approach to fashion, where you own a small, versatile collection of clothes that all work together. The goal is to create more outfits with fewer items. By simplifying your wardrobe, you reduce the need for constant new purchases and get more out of what you already own. If you're enjoying these tips and want to learn more about sustainable living, subscribe to our channel for more content.